I know that for a fact because I thought I had an internal car. He's broke. And I was a DA on this. I'm planning back in. One started up. And I went to 1,000 to go. Because I did my phone instead of that. And it turned out to be the little dragon here. It's something so we have that warranty. Overnight of one, and we send them back. From New York. It gets here quick. Depending on what time it happens, they ship it out and then it gets here ready for business for 4 or 5 the next day. That'll be FedEx. Like something that's not like this. Say that out. How many do you have? Oh, you don't have one, right? Five and one at the front. That's what you bought me. That's what I bought this one. Microphone today. Put it on the gimbal and go live. You guys have microphones for all of them? He's got the capability. I don't think he has microphone as well. Yeah. No, we have the Rode. Rode? Not the one I have. Mine has the little cable. You can connect this to the adapter. And then I have another mic that I just got that's plugged into this, but then you have to take out the sound. No, you can, it's ours. No. No, he doesn't. Because before I was me, I was the operation manager and about 2 years, and then they created and the rest of the back. And all the things that I did.
get started. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk a little bit more about the report during this press conference, and then we'll make sure to get you guys the whole report through email in both English and Spanish. So we'll present, like a rundown version of it, like a very brief version of it today, and then we'll give you the whole report for you to have as well. So just 2 minutes, and then we'll get started.
So, real quick, since we all have our mics up there, would it be possible for whoever's speaking to stay near that?
Yeah, they are going to be. Just waiting for Fernanda and Luis. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Alan Lizarraga. I'm the Communications Manager for Border North for Human Rights. Today we're here with our partners from Texas Civil Rights Project to present to you all an initial report, initial findings on the Texas National Guard's under Operational Start. So for the past 3 years, we've been talking about how the deployment of National Guard's troops under Operational Start has led to serious cases of abuse towards migrants, asylum seekers, and border residents. So we hope that today we're able to present and shed light a little more on the aggressions that are happening against these communities and present clear cases of abuse to you all. So what we did is using our abuse documentation model, which is a community structure where we have people from our community talk to affected individuals firsthand. We were able to collect several stories that we want to present to you. Muy buenos días a todos, mi nombre es Alan Lizarraga, soy el gerente de comunicaciones con la Red Fronteriza por los Derechos Humanos. El día de hoy estamos aquí con nuestros compañeros del Texas Civil Rights Project para presentarles a ustedes un reporte inicial, un reporte ejecutivo sobre las acciones de la Guardia Nacional que fue desplegada aquí a la frontera bajo el operativo Estrella Solitaria. Entonces, usando nuestra estructura comunitaria, una estructura de documentación de abusos, hemos podido colectar casos de personas que vienen buscando asilo, de personas que han sido afectadas por las acciones de la Guardia Nacional. And with that, I want to pass it to Fernando Garcia, our Executive Director, to open up this conversation.
Sorry, guys. Buenos días, todavía son días. I'm gonna do it in English first and then in Spanish. First, I want to thank our peers and partners with the Texas Civil Rights Project for being in El Paso. They are also constantly in finding mission, right, to actually understand what is happening in the rest of Texas, specifically at the border. So we welcome them today to El Paso for this joint press conference and joint report. Let me start saying this again, and we said it before, everything has started with a distortion. And when I say that is because politicians in Texas, specifically Mr. Greg Abbott and other politicians in Texas government, they have distorted intentionally what is happening at the border. If I can give you a picture, a photograph of how the Texas-Mexico border looks like right now, in that picture you will see a river. On the US side of the river you will see barbed wire, water buoys, National Guard, 10,000 National Guard members, Border Patrol, weapons, DPS, helicopters, a heavily militarized border, Texas border. And on the Mexican side, generally and lately, you will see a refugee and an immigrant family. You will see children and women. So that is what we are seeing now at the border. And everything started with the distortion that the Texas was being overrun and invaded by criminals. But they are referring to immigrants and refugees as criminals. Let's make that for sure. Mr. Greg Abbott and other politicians, they've been using the argument of drugs, especially fentanyl, that is coming into Texas to deploy 10,000 National Guard soldiers and state troopers to stop fentanyl between ports of entry. And based on the statistics, the CBP statistics, 99% of the fentanyl and drugs come at ports of entry by plane and trucks. So that is a futile effort of spending $11 billion at the border. But what the governor is doing in our communities in Texas at the border has consequences already. So as it is mentioned, and you will see it in the report, the findings of this report that actually we collected the cases in the last few months, they are very troublesome. And I'm gonna go into that, I'm just gonna translate into Spanish briefly. So todo empezó con una distorsión. La distorsión de que Texas estaba siendo invadido por criminales. Y esta distorsión la empezó el gobernador con otros políticos diciendo que en la frontera con México y Texas estaba llena de criminales invadiendo Estados Unidos, lo cual sabemos que era una distorsión intencional. Nosotros decíamos y hablábamos de que la razón principal que utiliza el gobernador a cada rato es de que está entrando fentanilo a través de la frontera. Por lo tanto, desplegó 10,000 soldados de la Guardia Nacional y también policías estatales en nuestra frontera. Pero el 99% de esa droga, de fentanilo específicamente, pasa en los puertos de entrada. Entonces, ¿por qué desplegar miles y miles de soldados entre los puertos de entrada? Esto no tiene nada que ver con la guerra contra las drogas. Este es un fracaso de política distorsionada, sin embargo, tiene sus consecuencias prácticas, que es lo que estamos presentando hoy en el reporte. So the main findings of the report. Now, I'm gonna go and mention one of the findings, and I'm gonna ask Alan to read the case that relates to that finding. The first finding is that the Texas National Guard is using threatening, abusive, and violent language towards asylum seekers. Again, the Texas National Guard is using threatening, abusive, violent language towards asylum seekers.
So the first case we have documented says, we were walking along when we saw a hole between mile 44 and 45 from the gate. From there we went in and ran to the wall. When we got to the wall, we felt safe. We were walking, and in a matter of 3 to 4 minutes, a military van arrived, a white van with 4 soldiers. They got out of the van and began to attack us, saying, you thought you got what you wanted, you fucking bastards. You're going to go back the way you came in, because this is my country, and here we make the rules, and here the laws are respected. You are illegals who do nothing but spend the money of those of us who pay taxes. You are worthless here. You are fucking rats, and you are going back to the hole you came in. That's what the female soldier told us.
We're going to translate that in a couple of minutes. The second finding says that the Texas National Guard is physically abusing asylum seekers, migrants, and border residents on a regular and constant basis. At times, children have been victims of this type of abuse.
So one of the cases that we collected says, we were holding onto the wall, but they wanted to take us out by force. I could see that everyone was holding onto the wall, and I was holding onto my wife through the bars of the wall. I was holding onto the child carrier. Then I saw that they wanted to take out the daughter of the woman. The girl was clinging onto the edge of the wall, hugging with both arms. The officer pulls her, but the girl doesn't want to give in. With his hand, he hits the back of her skull towards the bars of the wall, and that's where he smashes her head. After that, the aggression is magnified. They pulled over 2 vans, and the officer began to grab me by the neck. I had a bag on the side with a strap, and the officer grabbed it with both hands and began to choke me with my bag. Here I have the marks, and he showed us the marks that he had from this list.
In the third finding, the Texas National Guard is using lethal and non-lethal weapons to deter asylum seekers and preventing them from exercising the right to petition for asylum.
Today, August 1st, me and my family, my husband and my 2 children, tried to cross into the United States along
all got out and went back to the Mexican side because we were afraid that if they shot at us, we would fall into the barbed wire. On the morning of August 1st, we tried to cross into the United States through the Rio Grande River at gate 36. When we tried to go up to the area where the agents in the military uniforms were, they threatened us with their guns to get out. I was about to enter when the vans arrived, and one of them approached me and put a gun to my head, threatening me and telling me to get back.
I'm going to translate en español. Entonces, parte de lo que hemos encontrado, voy a sumarizar los 3 primeros resultados de esta documentación que hemos hecho que implican a la Guardia Nacional. El primer resultado y conclusión es que la Guardia Nacional está utilizando lenguaje abusivo, amenazante y violento hacia las personas que buscan asilo. La segunda conclusión es que la Guardia Nacional está abusando físicamente a las personas que buscan asilos, a migrantes y a residentes fronterizos de una forma permanente y regular. Especialmente hemos identificado abuso hacia niños en este sistema de abuso de la Guardia Nacional. Y el tercer resultado es que la Guardia Nacional está utilizando armas letales y no letales para prevenir que los migrantes y personas que quieren pedir asilo no puedan llegar a hacerlo, negándoles ese derecho a pedir asilo. Estamos hablando de situaciones muy serias que violan la ley no solo nacional, sino también la ley internacional. So con eso, with that, we're actually going to pass it on to some of our recommendations, right?
So now we're going to pass it to our partners at Texas Civil Rights Project.
Thanks, Alan. The state of Texas is systematically abusing migrants, and they're doing it in our names. My name is Danny Woodward, and I'm an attorney with the Texas Civil Rights Project. Today we stand in solidarity with the Border Network for Human Rights. We stand for decency, and we stand for basic accountability for the violence that the National Guard has inflicted on migrants at our border. As I reflect on the stories that we've documented over the past few months, one stands out in particular. Over the past few months, I've been talking to a father who fled Venezuela with his family after the government threatened him. He took his wife and his young children, and they all headed north. They ended up in Juarez, where they wanted to cross the border and turn themselves over to CBP to request asylum. They wanted to do things the quote-unquote right way. Instead, after they crossed the river, the Texas National Guard, now emboldened by the power that's been given to them under Operation Lone Star, has subjected them to a horrifying course of abuse over 6 hours. Just minutes after they crossed the river, a guard member drove up to them, cursed at them, and called them fucking rats. The family then walked a while towards gate 36, hoping to find a CBP officer. Instead, they saw guard members forcing other migrants across the river. The family became afraid that they would also be forced across the river and into the hands of the cartels, so they ran to the border wall. A soldier came towards the group, trying to get them away from the wall. Seeing this and becoming very afraid, the father, who I was speaking to, picked up his son and held him tight to his chest. The soldiers continued to approach and smashed the father in the face and the chin with the butt of his rifle. Still, the family managed to cling to the wall for safety. A female guard member came up and told them not to cling to the wall because they had orders to break their arms if they kept holding onto the wall. She also said that they would shoot them if they tried to run. Another soldier pointed his rifle at them, loaded it, and told them, "If you run, we have orders to shoot you." The father told me that he asked the soldier if he planned to shoot him and his son, and the soldier just said, "Yes, that is my order." Eventually, the soldiers told the family that they could go to gate 36, but that they only had 15 seconds to run 400 or 500 meters. The family immediately took off running, terrified. The soldiers drove alongside them in their trucks. They were blaring music, they took pictures, and they were pointing and laughing. After this final humiliation, the family made it to CBP, and they were able to be processed and detained and request asylum. Notice that during this whole story, the Texas National Guard never arrested this family. They did not do this, they did not arrest them because they do not have the authority to do so, to arrest people on federal land for crossing the border. What this means is that their mission is to act as kind of a vicious gauntlet that migrants must run to reach safety in America. This incident speaks to me in particular, and it's the one that speaks in my mind, because as I was talking to this father on the phone for several hours, towards the end of our conversation, my own 1-year-old son came up and he was banging on the door of my office. When I got off the phone, I picked him up and I hold him close to my chest. I just can't believe that our state is inflicting this kind of pain on children in our names. I also want to emphasize that this is not an isolated incident. I've heard multiple stories with exactly the same elements that include physical abuse, verbal abuse, and these kind of sadistic games where people are forced to run and get threatened with being shot. Now look, most people want the same things in life. They want to live in community with their friends and family. They want to be safe. People traveling to the border put themselves at tremendous risk to get these things for their family. But when they arrive in Texas, they find anything but that safety. Operation Lone Star has given unchecked power to the National Guard to use force on the families and children that they should be protecting. Instead of wasting taxpayer dollars on deadly weapons and tactics, Texas should be investing in ways to expand access to lawful pathways for people seeking safety and information and resources after they arrive. Operation Lone Star must end. It has caused pain and suffering and has violated the rights of Texans and also migrants. This sham program must be investigated, and the Texas National Guard must be held accountable for their actions. So, as the Texas legislature starts hearings on the border in the upcoming legislative session and in the coming weeks, we call on lawmakers to confront state leaders with these stories of abuse and demand an end to the violence. Thank you, Fernando and Alan. I'm going to pass it back to Alan now.
Thank you, Danny. So to wrap up this press conference, again, we are setting forth a couple of policy recommendations that we want to see, especially as we're near a new legislative session here in Texas. So the first one, again, is we want a new policy, a new legislation that increases transparency, accountability, and community engagement within the Texas Military Department and other Texas security forces that are acting here at the border. We also want a comprehensive study and a comprehensive report on the impacts of Operation Lone Star, not just on border communities, but also urban and rural communities throughout Texas. We want them to study and report on the impacts that this initiative has had on both the human and constitutional rights of Texans and asylum seekers and migrants. The last two, we want a comprehensive review and report on the impacts of OLS deterrence